All right, here we've got an Ampeg Portaflex model B-15. This belongs to the legendary Sun Studios, birthplace rock and roll. I've done a lot of amps for them, and this may be an amp that I did in 2017. The tag says recheck amp and repair. And there was a 60 B-15 that I worked on in 2017. And I've got my notes on what I did. Let's see if this is the same amp or whether they have more than one B-15. It's nice to have a studio, isn't it? So let's get this tube cage off and see. According to my notes, I installed some Tungsol 6L6 STRs in the 1960 I had. And these look like they are, in fact, Tungsol SDRs, very, very dusty. All right, let me separate the chassis from the cab part here. Easier for me to do that off while not filming, just a lot of stuff flipping around different ways. We get all this separated and then we'll take a look at it. All right, the chassis is out. And I've pulled all the tubes, and I've gotten the dust off the tubes. And I'm going to take this outside and get all the dust off the chassis, because this is an awful, awful lot of dust. And this just gets down into everything. And I don't want to power the amp on until I'm sure all that's out. And I'll be giving a very good visual inspection of the inside before I power it on, because it's been 5 years. And it's certainly been in use, though it is also literally gathering dust. And I don't want this stuff in my work area, and I don't want to be breathing it. If I get the sneezels, this will be a very unpleasant video to listen to. So I'll be right back. All right, that's a lot better, though it's still not lovely. Let me find my WD-40 stash. Where did I put it this week? I like this for cleaning chrome, like this, because it will clean the chrome and it won't remove the white silk screen lettering on the front. I'm not going to do the whole thing right now. I'm just going to do a test area. You'll have a sense of what the thing will look like when I am done. Just going to move this around. This will get the funk that the brush by itself did not get off. Is this necessary? Not really, but it sure makes me feel better about things. The tube sockets will get cleaned with alcohol, and all the pots in the amp will get cleaned with deoxit. I see people using WD-40 to clean pots, and I weep for their amps. They also use it on their tube sockets because they're made of evil. There's a very popular amp repair channel. The guy puts WD-40 in things where it should not go. I cannot fix all the problems in the world. I can but quietly try to lead a little bit by example. Every solvent for its intended purpose, please. All right, that gives a pretty good idea of what this will look like when I am done with it. It's a lot prettier. Anyway, let's take this thing and flip it upside down, take a look at it. If I can do it without putting any strain on these posts. It's an odd chassis design. Okay. Everything looks pretty much as it was back in 2017. All the original coupling caps in the amp were yellow astrons and were all leaking, so they got Mallory's, and all the bypass caps have been replaced with these Nishikans, which are no longer made, but these should still be fine. And you can see the stuff here with the F&Ts and some metal oxide and wire wound resistors. The cathode bias here where the actual bias resistor has got a good bit of space between it and its bypass cap for heat. Everything here looks pretty much the way it would have done 5 years ago when last I had it, and it passes the smell test. I will say, however, and I will have a polite word with my friend over at Sun, if I can get this to come out, that when the amp came into me, it was like this. No, 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 never, never, never. The amp will be much quieter, grounded than with this. I'll do it both ways. And it may be that it's real noisy like this, and then it gets its ground, and then the chassis is shielding properly, and all noise goes away. We'll find out. It could also be a noisy tube. We will find out. I'm going to clean the tube sockets before I do anything else, because all that yuck that was up top gets down into these things. And I won't know that the tubes are any good as long as they're that full of yuck. And I'm ready to clean the pots and jacks again for the same reason. All right, all these tube sockets have been cleaned very thoroughly with alcohol. And I tried to wick out as much as possible with a paper towel from this side. And got a lot of orange out of these. Some of that can be flux from old solder, some of it can be nicotine. Every one of these came out a little discolored. But now, since I put all that liquid in there, that alcohol, I'm gonna let this evaporate for about 20 minutes before I put the tubes back in and we see what's up. But I have a feeling we're have a much better chance of having a working amp from doing all this stuff before I even turn on the soldering iron. All right, before I even put in tubes to test this, I need to be able to make sure I have a load. And you'd think you can just use the 8-ohm extension speaker jack, but no, that's actually in series with the 4-pin connector that goes to the back of the cabinet. If this is not connected, that's not connected because it's a series thing. So the first thing I want to do is open this up, because I'm going to want to make sure that this has a good connection to the speaker. It's a lot of fun to work on these, trust me. Make sure the focus is good. So is that enough to pull it loose? Let me get this all the way loosened, just to be sure. Second of all, there's a lot of fatigue of the insulation here. These things can get strained. I want to make sure that the connections inside are very good, and that the insulation, where the stress relief, the strain relief here isn't degraded too much, because these are very expensive transformers to replace, because something goes wrong inside like this. Let's see if I can get this to come out now. It's a snap in, snap out thing, and I don't think I can do it with the camera here, so let me move the camera to the side. All right, in a perfect world, I'd be able to film everything that I do, but in this case, between my extreme nearsightedness and the very fragile old Bakelite or phenolic here, I just really need to work up close to my face and be very careful. This cut just snaps on, and then you tighten it around the cable. You can see that cable has got some degrading there. So before I send this amp back out, I'm going to cut about 2 inches off of this and get that degraded old rubber out of the equation. And I'll reflow these with a trimmed a bit shorter. Right now, what I'm going to do is look at the schematic and see which of these pins are the 8-ohm positive and negative. And I'm going to temporarily solder in an extension jack to this, which will allow me to use a 1/4 inch for my existing cab. I will test the actual speaker cab for this separately from testing the amp. It's much easier if I only have so many variables at once. So let me hook a switchcraft onto here real fast. Well, aside from a hilarious moment where I thought it was dead because I forgot that it makes the HT center tap to ground connection through this, actually through the external speaker cabinet wiring. This yellow wire temporarily does the same thing. It's sounding really good. Got something microphonic in there, maybe one of these preamp tubes. V1 and V2 are both a little microphonic, but you know, these are probably the original. They're old Sylvania 6SL7s. They may be about as good as we can get these days. We'll find out. Quick note on the B-15 and some other amps from that era, for instance, the Silvertone. I'm not plugged into channel 1. Let me turn the volume off on channel 2. If I turn the volume up on channel 1, there's a hum. That's because these jacks aren't grounding. And it doesn't have any grid reference when you do that. So whichever channel you're using, have the other channel volume off. I've already tested both channels. They sound pretty much the same. So I'm in channel 2 here. I had swapped V1 and V2, which are both 6SL7s, because I thought maybe I had an extraordinarily microphonic one in V1, but the microphonics have not changed, but the gain seems to have gone down. So let me swap them back. Yep, definitely more gain now. So the one in V2 is a little bit weak. One in V1 is a little bit microphonic. And the pots sound good. We'll do a real playing video of this once I get the cabinet, make sure it's all wired up correctly and the 15 is good. Just a very good meat and potatoes bass sound, literally one of the foundation sounds. Get a P bass into this thing, or jazz, your preference, and roll the tone off. And other fumblings where I dimly remember things I used to know how to play. But the amp is sounding quite nice. I'm gonna swap V3 and V2 around, see if where the gain goes. I think the tube in V2 is just a little bit weak, and the one in V1's slightly microphonic. Not too bad. The wiring to it's pretty quiet, except for that grid, but that's to be expected with these things. Nothing on the board, so I think that's just going to be the nature of the beast. So V1 maybe a little too microphonic, V2 slightly microphonic. It seems to be a little bit weak. I will talk to the owners once I make sure that the speaker is where it ought to be. There's a thing with old amps like this and old tubes. Is it ideal? Maybe not, but maybe where it's a little bit weak just has the sound that records perfectly. I'm pretty happy with this. Let me get the speaker and cabinet all working 100%. Clean up the connections at both ends of the speaker cable like I mentioned, and we will see where we are at.